All right, it's time once again for man therapy. Kyle, how we doing today, dude?
I'm doing good. It's a nice day.
Yeah,
The week was good. Today's nice. I'm looking forward to the weekend, so I'm good. How are you doing?
yeah. I'm doing okay, man. I like there are weeks, I don't know. I think in the last episode I talked about me at times being overly optimistic,
Hmm.
but I had one of those moments, was it yesterday or the day before? I think it was Wednesday, where I was woke up in a bad mood, and then I heard a song that I hadn't heard in a while, and it
Hmm.
made my head start bouncing, and I like started dancing in the kitchen, and it was
Okay.
crazy. Like it changed my entire day, dude.
Yeah. You know what? I actually really like that you have that capability.
Yeah.
I love your optimistic default setting. I think that's cool. I purposefully try to be influenced by positivity. If I'm in a
Yeah.
negative mood, I will let myself notice something or someone that's like upbeat, and then I'll
Yeah.
purposefully just like piggyback off their energy. So I like people like you.
For the listeners here in our town, there is you have a title in this town, and it's the nicest man in Swisher.
No, I didn't know that.
Dude, yes. I mean,
Uh-uh.
I didn't even know who the hell you were when I moved into town. And we're driving around in the golf cart or we're walking somewhere, and I just see this dude wave at everybody. Like, you wave at everybody, you smile
I
at
do.
everybody. And I'm like, and then you have to meet this guy because you're like, is this dude crazy? Or is he actually just a really nice person? And
Yeah.
I'm glad you're just really nice.
Oh no, that's really funny. I didn't know that. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit embarrassing, but I also like it.
Now, no, now you're going to start mean mugging everybody.
Yeah, that's right. I'm just gonna start glaring and like throwing people off. I'll probably start having meals delivered to my doorstep and like people
Start
checking
putting
in
your
on me then.
start putting your hands up and being like, "What?
What?
What? What?"
Oh my gosh. No, then I would just start laughing. Oh, that's funny.
um,
Yeah.
all right, remind us again how long you've been counseling for.
I've been a full-time psychotherapist for about 14 years.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and the first five of that, I was a registered play therapist and worked primarily with kids and families. And then I had to navigate away from that because it was just too heart-wrenching for me.
Yeah,
It's too hard seeing the stuff that kids have been through, and working with the least powerful member of the family is also really hard. And
yeah,
yeah, it's rough.
yeah. I believe that, dude. I got a soft spot for kids, man. Like,
Hmm.
I think that's why I like coaching so much. But at the same time, when you're involved in coaching and all of that stuff, and we're going to get into this here in a little bit, but um, you get to see how good your life has been as when you were a kid, and how good your kids have it compared to some of these other kids. Like if you
Yeah,
get to meet their parents, or if you, I don't
yeah.
know, you get a little bit more of an insight into their life. It's like, damn, is all I gotta say.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. You meet some really, really neat people and
Mhm.
incredible people and parents that and families that you like really look up to, and then you also see some stuff that you're like, oh no, like I'm so glad that this kid's coming here and at least has this hour
Absolutely.
of T-ball practice that we
Mhm.
just get to be like positive, and he just like has no other worries.
Yep, exactly. Okay, I got to ask you a crazy question before we get rolling here.
All right, let's hear it.
In all of the years that you've had to counsel, and maybe there's a rule against it. I'm not sure if there's a rule or not, but have you ever been talking with someone, counseling them, and you're like, you have kind of a moment where you're like, this dude is legit crazy, and I am fearing for the life of people that he is around? Have you ever had a crazy
Hmm.
encounter like that?
Hmm. I think I've had multiple actually. And obviously I won't give any like identifying details or
Yeah.
specifics, but yeah, I don't tend to use the word crazy even with myself, privately, professionally, but those situations has been more like, whoa, this person is very disturbed. This
Hmm.
person is really sick, and yeah, it's really sad when that's the case because you can see the bad trajectory that they're on.
Yeah.
And sadly, I saw that with kids too, where you're just like, oh man, if something major doesn't change in this kid's life, like they're gonna go down a really bad path.
Yeah.
But yeah, really, especially scary with adults that that's happened. But yeah, no, I've had some oh shit moments for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think that anybody's a lost cause because even those people that I've had oh shit moments with, I think things ended up being okay in at least in the time span that I worked with them. But yeah, man, it can be a scary moment
Yeah.
or a scary series of moments when you have a client that you're responsible for that you didn't have the whole picture of before you started working with, and then you started working with them, and then they started showing some of their stuff. And for like the average person going to counseling, like I'm not talking about you, like don't worry. I think a lot. My fear is that people that go to counseling would hear a counselor talk about their clients and be like, "Oh my gosh, like
Yeah.
he's talking about me or he's talking about somebody like me." Like, no, no, no. I'm talking about like the major outliers.
Yeah.
The average person, actually in my experience, the average person that comes to counseling is like really pretty darn healthy, just trying to do better in life or getting through like a legit difficult situation or has some real stuff from their childhood that's affecting how they've grown and how they operate in the world. So no, the average person in counseling, that's not who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the total curveball that's like, whoa, I wish I had another person in the room with me right now to like
Yeah.
double check that I'm like doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing to make sure that this person and the general population are okay.
Yeah. Dang.
Yeah.
Because there, like there are some people out there who I don't know, man. You kind of wonder what life inside their walls of their home is like, right? Whether they're
Yeah.
single or or a kid or like, because man, I've coached a couple kids where some really bad things have happened in their life. They act out. Their parents, like one of the parents, is usually a good parent who is the reason that they're in the activities that they're in, and they're
Mm.
trying their hardest to make their kids better, whether the other parent is involved or not. But
Yeah.
you can see signs of like scary, really scary, violent behavior, and it's hard knowing like I come from an old school coaching where it's like shut up, sit down, do what you're told, blah blah blah. And with kids like that, man, they just do not react to that kind of coaching.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, what tact do you take? Well, actually, let's zoom out a little bit and talk about the idea of coaching your kids generally speaking.
mhm.
Did you did your dad coach you?
Yes.
And did you always know you were going to coach your kids if you could, or did you get thrust into it, or what was your path to like? And your kids are little, and you've
Yeah.
been coaching since they were really little. So yeah,
Yep.
I'm curious about your path of getting into coaching your little kids.
That's a good question, and I want to hear yours as well. Like for me, it's two parts, and one of them is going to sound extremely arrogant. Part number one is yes, my dad coached me in baseball and flag football when he was a kid, and he coached me all the way up until it was time to get into actual school sports, where the school would provide coaching and things like
Right.
that. Um, Outside of that, um, he was a good coach. Like he was good. He was probably a little too patient, just like every dad. I feel he was hardest on his own kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
We've
you
all
know
seen
what I
that
mean?
play out.
Here's a funny story. I believe the last year I played baseball, my dad or little league baseball, we butted heads a lot, and so I played on a different team, and he coached a team, but I was on a different team.
Yes. Oh yeah, I
So
can see it.
and so I knowing now, like I used to look at that and be like, Jesus, he didn't like cater to me or whatever. But I was probably an asshole. to him.
Yeah.
And I was one of those kids who probably, oh, this is my dad. I already know all this stuff, and like interrupted him
Mhm.
all the time instead. So it was probably extremely frustrating for him to coach. But
Yeah.
number one, I like sports. I like coaching. And the arrogant part is I feel there is a specific way to coach kids from building the fundamentals and the foundation of any sport and then building on that so that when they do get to high school or middle school or whatever the case is, they have they know where the foundation is and they can always resort back to the foundation of whatever it is they're doing. And so
Yep.
I'm very critical about who is coaching my kids' sports. Like, for example, my oldest son, like baseball, there's so many intricacies in the sport of baseball. If this,
Oh yeah.
then this, if this, then
Oh
this.
yeah. It's a hard
And
sport
so,
for little kids to learn.
exactly. And so my youngest son, he's young. He's just try to find the love of the game. But
Yeah.
with my oldest son and my daughter who's in wrestling, they're all in wrestling, but my oldest son loves baseball and my oldest daughter is really into wrestling. So there's a fundamentals that have to be learned before you can build on any movement or
Right.
how the sport goes. So I'm critical of that, and I feel like things should be done a certain way, and when they're not, then I see that, and then so there's only one thing for me to do, and that's to coach. Like
Yeah.
if you're not happy with it, you have to volunteer your time to do it, and so that's what I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen to that. I'm not saying that every parent should coach and not
Hmm.
everybody has to coach, but man, I think if you have an inclination that you want to do it, and also I think it's a really good thing to get out of your comfort zone.
Yep.
If you're not sure, I think you should do it. I don't think I ever planned on doing it, but I think my outlook on it shifted like when it was really time, and I started being
Hmm.
like, oh my gosh, like I want to be. I just this weird drive just appeared in me that I just want to be a good role model. I want to be a good mentor to these kids. Like I want this like just ideas just started springing forth in my head of how I would do it and the encouragement that I would give the kids, and so I started doing it and it's really fun. And yeah, it can be when they're little it's like herding cats, which is super
Yeah.
frustrating, but you just have to like embrace that and
Yeah.
have reasonable expectations. But no, I think my outlook on it is basically I wanted to make them comfortable with the challenge. Like I wanted it to be fun and challenging, and I
Yeah.
wanted I wanted them to like look forward to coming to practice and to games, and I wanted to push each kid as far as I could without their self-esteem ever being at stake. Was kind of
Right.
my philosophy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm like paying attention to each kid. What do they respond to? Building them up a lot. Or some kids actually don't even like a ton of like attention or
Hmm.
praise, and so it's funny that those are the kids like my upbeat, positive, outgoing attitude.
Hmm.
I actually struggle a little bit with the kids that don't want attention. Like the kids that
Yeah.
want attention, freaking love me, and
Yeah.
I click with them so well. But there's a kid here and there that are a little more introverted and they don't want the big expressions of
Good
pride and
job, buddy.
happiness.
You're
Yeah,
you're
they
doing
don't want
great.
all
Yeah.
that. Like that's
Right.
those are the ones that I actually struggle with the most. But
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of got into to part of why I got into coaching was honestly this is actually part of my mentality for volunteering generally speaking is I just want to make sure there's somebody sane there.
Yeah.
you know, I sometimes I coach and generally volunteer for things in life, so that like unhinged people can't.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
want to take that spot so that somebody that's unhealthy can't do it. Like I want to be a sane voice.
Yeah. I think one thing that you do really well as a coach, because I've never, number one, I've seen you coach, but and I think did we coach t-ball together one year or not? I can't remember.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Maybe I'd like to.
Any
I'd love to coach with you.
or soccer or something. Well, anyway, we've coached each other's kids at some
Yeah,
point,
yeah,
right? And so, what I like about you is oftentimes there is a parent that is or maybe like a head coach role that's very aggressive, like that's not very aggressive in the terms of like, but aggressive in how they coach. You do this, do this. I would say I lean more towards that. But the balance is if I was, let's just say coach A, who's more aggressive, me, choose a kid out for making a mistake or not listening, or maybe not choose them out, but corrects them or explains to them, hey, if this happens, you got to do this, this, and this, and this. Oftentimes, those coaches don't do a good job of then explaining it's okay to make a mistake, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Meanwhile, then that gets passed to you. And as
Yep.
a coach, like I felt like, dude, you do a real good job of saying, hey, dude, forget about it. Get them next time.
Yeah.
Everybody makes mistakes as long as we learn from them. And you're the calm voice while the other coaches are like the more go get them type
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
traditional
Yep.
coaches. Yeah.
I think that's absolutely true. I'll never forget
It's
my.
necessary too.
Oh yeah, no, I agree with you. I'll never forget my t-ball experience when I was a little kid. It's a lesson that has stuck with me forever. The difference between having an encouraging coach versus a negatively critical coach,
Mm-hmm.
and these kids that are just learning. Let's say you're just hitting them ground balls. Like there's 8 kids in a line, and the coach is just hitting them grounders. And the coach is obviously giving all the kids like, here's how you feel the grounder, and you get it and you throw it to first. And if the ball goes through a kid's legs, if the coach has this big display of like frustration and irritation and chews them out, that kid feels so embarrassed
Mm-hmm.
and so ashamed that they tighten up so much. They go to the back of the line. They are terrified for their turn to come up again.
Yeah.
They're seeing the kid in front of them go, and the kid in front of them go, and the kid in front of them go, and they're starting to get closer and closer to it being their turn again, and they're just freaking terrified, and that breaks my heart.
Yeah.
I absolutely hate that. I have no room for that in my life and no patience for that in
Yeah.
coaching because that poor kid is now terrified to play a sport that should be super fun. And
Yeah.
and actually that kid is now a lot more likely to just make another mistake, which is just going to solidify that he feels like shit about himself
Yeah.
versus the coach that does care about performance and is trying to teach the skills. But when this little kid messes up, you don't have to rub their noses in it.
Right.
That's like it's all building. It's just constantly building.
Yep.
So that's a
Absolutely.
thing that I've kept in mind my whole life, and that's actually a metaphor that I use in my counseling really often. It's like, hey, which type of coach are you? And I apply that to everything. So like, which type of coach are you to your spouse?
Okay.
Which type of coach are you to your kids? Which type of coach are you to your coworkers and employees? And then really the place where I think it's the most important is which type of coach are you to yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Are you that hypercritical coach inside your head that just is like sucking the joy out of things and putting so much pressure on yourself and you just degrade yourself when you don't do things well? Or are you the type of the coach that does care, realizes that mistakes are going to happen and then encourages you to like get back out there and try? Because
Yeah.
man, that the kid that gets encouraged when they make a mistake and the ground ball goes through their legs, but if you build them up and remind them that you believe in them and that you think that they'll figure it out and they'll do better next time, they're looking forward to their turn coming up again.
Right. Right. So that's interesting you bring some of this up. Excuse me. Because I watched a coaching video on YouTube the other day, and he talked about there's three types of um, athletes who are that you will coach throughout the kids, right?
Hmm.
So type one is what they call an AA, right? They are an A, or let's just say really good athletes, and they're
Hmm.
very coachable, right?
Mm.
And so those are very rare kids who coaches love to have because they don't need a lot of instruction and they make coaches look really good, right?
Right.
Those,
Yeah.
yeah, those are rare, and it's awesome. Then you have the next one, which are the type two, which is kids who are extremely talented, but are very uncoachable. Usually, these types of kids distract the team. They let you
Yeah.
know, like, I don't need coaching. I'm good. I'm already good. And then we'll talk about them in a second
Yeah.
because type three is what you call a BB, which they have no, or a BA, excuse me. They have no talent, but they are extremely coachable. And what you
Ah.
see is this BA then eventually surpass AB, type 2
Yeah.
because and they're the ones that will turn into the AA because they want to learn and they have a drive to do so. And so
Yeah.
those like I would rather have a kid who sucks at sports on my team but is extremely coachable
Yeah.
over a kid who is a distraction but extremely good because
Totally agree with
that's a
that.
good coach's job is to make somebody better to the point where they believe in themselves. And so
Hmm.
I don't know what that has to do with my coaching style. I just know that that was an interesting fact I pulled up about kids and how they maybe react to positive or negative reinforcement.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. Um, hmm. Yeah, I think that's the curse of being a gifted athlete. I'm using air quotes for people who can't see.
Yep.
The curse of being a gifted athlete as a little kid
Yeah.
is that you get away with not learning skills.
Right.
That if your kid is like crazy fast and they play soccer, they're just gonna boot the ball down the field and then outrun everyone to it. And that's
Yep.
not a skill. That's just you're just faster. And the
At the
second that
time.
you're
Yeah.
yeah, the second that you're the 7 year old in the 10U league, the 10 year olds are going to be able to run as fast as you. A slow 10 year old can run as fast as a fast 7 year old. So all of a sudden
Yeah.
your little trick of being faster than everybody is neutralized.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
but no, those kids that stink but coachable, like, oh, they're awesome. They're so fun. And those
Yep.
are those are the ones that like everybody's kind of rallying around the whole year, and it's fun to
Yep.
watch their development, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like everybody's cheering when they get a hit or make a
Yep.
play. I think that's so fun.
Yep.
But that it makes me realize though, so that AA, athletic, coachable, AB, athletic, much less coachable, BA, not talented, not very
Yep.
athletic, but very coachable. So man, those ABs are probably the place that require the most purposeful coaching.
Mm-hmm.
The kids that think they know it all and
It's
don't
not
want
a
to.
I'm sorry.
The,
They don't need the AB kids. They don't need the athletic coaching. They need the team coaching. You are part of a
yeah,
team and you need to be quiet when I talk because you're the one who's always messing up on the drills or not
yeah,
following instructions or distracting the class. So it's more of life coaching for those guys than actual
yeah.
skill coaching.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I could see, I'm just gonna like just make generalizations here. So this isn't gonna fit everybody. I can see those types of kids maybe actually being the most insecure,
Mm-hmm.
and that maybe they're not really as confident as they act. And so like I might be careful to coach those kids kind of a little more off to the side and not in front of everyone and not
Right.
correcting and critiquing in front of everyone. I might connect with those kids a little bit more outside of practice, before or after practice. I might try to get in with their parents a little bit more to be encouraging of them. I think those are when I used to be a registered play therapist and work with kids for years. We would call like there's some kids that we would call them relationship kids. Oh, also I worked at a residential treatment facility for kids for
Mm-hmm.
3 4 years, and these were kids that were court ordered out of their homes because their behaviors were so bad. um that was due to their families, but anyway, like there were some kids that were just like super hungry for positive adults, and
Mm-hmm.
so if any positive adult said something to them, they were like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Then there were other kids that like no matter how cool you were to them, they weren't gonna like follow directions, and they weren't gonna toe the line, and they were gonna fight you at every step. And we called those relationship kids. And what that meant was those kids were not going to listen to you just because you're the authority or just because you know what you're talking about. You had to build a relationship with them. So
Mm-hmm.
you had to try hard to like understand their interests and get to know them and befriend them some, and be really withhold like criticism and negativity because they're so sensitive to that it push them
Yeah.
away. So yeah, that's a really good point, that you made about the AB kids, being the way that they are. I think those are likely relationship kids that you may maybe say, okay, baseball's kind of secondary here.
Yeah.
Let me like get in cool with this kid and let them know that I actually give a shit about them, and that
Yeah.
it's not only their sports performance. Because a lot of times too, I think their self-worth is tied to their performance.
Mm-hmm.
So they're good at something, then they play well, they think they're awesome. Any criticism could be a hit to their ego.
Yeah.
So they're not the AA kid that's like, I just love this and tell me what I can do better.
Yeah.
They're like, they think they're good when they do well. They think they're bad when they don't do well. So if you criticize them, then they think they're bad. Even if
Right.
they did something awesome and you give them a little, that was so good. And next time maybe try it like this. They're like, screw you, because they
Yeah.
think that you're shitting on them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those are relationship kids.
So with these three types of kids, I can almost tell you what their parents are like.
Yeah,
So
go
like,
for it. Let's hear your. And these are going to be generalized
yeah,
guesses.
generalized. AA, right?
Hmm.
Maybe very supportive parents who have played the sport and are just good, solid parents. They do it right. They know how far to push their kid before burnout, and they have instructed or have set expectations for their kids to say, "Hey, listen, when a coach talks, you should be listening to them because their goal is to make you better," and they've listened to that.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
now the AB kid, their parent is, you're the best on the team, right? I don't know why this coach is putting you here or doing this. You should be doing this and this and this.
Mm,
And, you know, they are the parent that yells through the fence and is like at the kid during the game or while he's being coached at practice and things like that, um, where they are the type of people who their self-worth, like you said, is tied to their performance.
mm-hmm.
Okay. And the parents celebrate them in positive games where they've done great, but really drag them down when they make mistakes.
Mm,
Okay.
mm.
BA kids, they're some of the coolest parents because they just basically pass their kid on to you. And they're
Mm-hmm.
like, you got them for an hour. Here you go. Like, like
Yeah,
they probably don't play sports. I will say this, those BA kids who are the most coachable, but the bad, I see them falling in love with the sport more because their parents haven't pushed them in any direction. Their parents are just
yeah.
like, hey, man, you want to play baseball this year? Yeah, let's play baseball. All right, here we go.
Oh,
And then the parents don't, there's a term where um, you they don't know about the sport. They
yeah,
don't care about the performance. They're just having their kid there because their kid wants to play. So
yeah,
they sit and they have positive reinforcement no matter what happens. Dude, good game
yeah,
today. This kid made like 8 errors. Hey, good
yeah.
game today. And
Kid did nothing well.
I don't know whether you did good or not. So good job anyway. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
and so
yeah.
those are the kids, those are the like I feel like there's those types of parents, and you can almost relate this to people, right? Which are a
Yeah.
product of how they were raised in certain ways. And so like if you had really good parents, I'm going to guess a majority of people with good parents turn out to be good people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe I'm
Mm-hmm.
wrong.
No, that's funny. I was giggling because I think your assessment checks out
Mhm.
probably 90% of the time for each category. There's obvious, there's exceptions to that, but yeah. So I was
Outliers,
thinking
yeah.
of like I'm thinking of like the BA kids that I've coached and worked with over the years. Yeah, their parents are just sweethearts.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. Yeah, the
They're the
the
snack
AA.
moms.
Yeah, snack moms, and just like just so happy to be there. And yeah, they're
Yep.
not they're not critical of you as parents. Those are probably the parents that are like literally thanking you after every practice and,
Exactly.
and after every game. And
Exactly.
yeah, that's funny.
And
Yeah, so the
so
AA parents are probably the most secure and the less needy people, generally speaking. The AB is still the tricky zone for me because like they might not. I do think a lot of the time, if a kid's going to be an AB kid, it's likely that their parents are like reinforcing the outcomes and not the process.
yeah.
Wow, you did good, and not like wow, you worked hard, or getting on them if they make mistakes. But I can also see other folks in that category, like maybe their kid is just kind of a little hard to deal with, or the parent is kind of like a little insecure or unsure of themselves. And yeah, so I think those maybe we could even broaden like maybe those are kind of like relationship families, because I think
Hmm.
I've seen parents be a little like panicky to like demonstrate that they care and that they're trying to like, they're trying to show that they want to motivate their kids, but they're really not even sure how to do it either.
Yeah.
And maybe like to give them grace. There's a good chance that maybe they care a lot and they're trying hard, but maybe they didn't have the super supportive, super secure parents, to
Yeah.
show them how to do it. So maybe we can extrapolate and say those are relationship families and not just relationship kids.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
we should be partnering with those families more.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe having a conversation with the mom and or the mom and dad and the kid at one time and just be like, all right, so here's what I would like to see from you throughout the
Hmm.
next couple practices. Here's what
Yeah.
you've done really good. Here's what you need work on. And I think if
Yeah.
we can accomplish that, but then I'm always afraid if you do that, that then the parent, if it is an aggressive parent, turns back on him, and the car ride home is just a browbeating. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And you can say that to them explicitly, like, "Hey, I don't want it to be that." Also, a thing that I like to encourage parents to do, and by the way, anybody that knows me knows that it's not like I've done like an insane amount of coaching, and I'm not like
Yeah.
coach of the year in anything. Like people that know me know I've done like coaching around the rec league of my kid who's been 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old,
Yeah.
across like multiple sports. I'm not pretending like I'm this great, super experienced coach.
Yeah.
But when I have given, tips or pointers or encouragement to parents, I will encourage parents to build kids up and encourage their kids based on attitudes and behaviors rather than results.
Hmm.
So hey, teach your kid to try hard. Encourage your kid
Right.
to try hard. Praise your kid when they're trying. Praise your kid when they put in good effort. Praise your kid when something doesn't go well and they bounce back.
Hmm.
Don't praise or tear your kid down based on if they did well or if they made a mistake. Like
Yeah.
forget about that basically, which is really hard for parents to do sometimes. And
Right.
and just super hardcore focus on what was your attitude like?
Hmm.
What was your focus like? How did you bounce back when you made a mistake? Did you turn into a total asshole when you did well?
Right.
you know?
Yep.
So yeah, focusing
Absolutely.
on the attitudes and behaviors rather than the results are I think is a really good place for those parents to go. For all parents
Exactly.
to go.
So all people are not the same, right?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And so personality when coaching and how you coach a kid, for me, is the biggest struggle that I have. And
Mm.
matching a coaching style, because I'll be honest, I think a really good coach can change his style based off of the person that he's coaching,
Oh yeah.
right? And
Oh
that's
yeah.
something that I struggle with. At times, I feel like I'm a blanket statement coach, where I
Hmm.
try to coach everybody all at one time. But
Yeah.
these kids have personalities, and they all have buckets, or I don't know what,
Yeah.
like ranges of tolerance, I'll say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some kids you can lay into them and it's what they need, and that's how they react positively to that. And then you have other kids, if you do that the same, they freeze, they
Mhm.
retract, and they are afraid to even attempt next time.
Yeah.
So I know that the thing that I'm trying to become better at as a parent is or as a coach and a parent is to try to do things and say things on an individual level, but also at a team level. So that's two completely different coaching styles based on the personality of the kid that I'm trying to coach.
Yep. Yep. I love it. I hear that you're being purposeful. You care enough to be purposeful, as
Yeah,
opposed to like, oh, just do what I do and I've put no thought into it.
yeah, yeah.
That's good. I appreciate you as a purposeful coach, and I think you'll you'll continue to grow as a coach as you do it.
Hmm.
It's super neat to start out, with your kid and they're 3, 4, 5 years old playing t-ball, and you're like, I don't know, I know the basic rules of this stuff, and I've
Yeah.
never coached before, but let me just try this. Like you kind of grow with your kids
Hmm.
when it comes to coaching. I think that's
Yeah.
super neat.
Yeah.
I also had to chuckle. A thought I didn't share earlier. It made me laugh when you said that your dad just straight up coached a different team.
Yeah.
He just put you on a different team. Like, um, my son's awesome. I love him to death, but he's like I've taken a step back here and there in coaching him because there was a while that he was like hanging on every word that I said, and then it kind of turned that he's like he wouldn't hear it from me. He would hear it from every other coach. Every other coach could coach him. He's actually I'm really proud of my son that he is definitely coachable and
Yeah.
like respectful to coaches and wants to hear it. But when I would say it, he'd say, "Oh, I know. I already know. Don't tell me."
My
And I'm like,
oldest
"Oh
son
my
is just
gosh,
like that.
what the heck?" I would have conversations with the other coaches, and we all kind of came to this agreement of like, "Hey, will you go say this to my kid?" Or, "Hey, if you see my kid doing X, Y, and Z, will you say something to them?" And they're like, "Yeah." And if you see my kid doing X, Y, and Z, will you say something to them? And so we would just like we went with the flow. Like
Yeah.
wasn't trying to force my kid like a power struggle thing. Like you will listen to me because I think a skill in coaching is being really savvy about how to figure out how to get it done. And
Yeah.
so, you know what? If I can just like plant a bug in another coach's ear to go say something to my son, yeah, I think that's a good way to do it. So that just made me laugh
Yeah.
to hear you're on just a totally different team than your dad coached.
Yeah. It was weird because he had to go coach a team and then had to take me to practice and
Yeah.
sit and watch.
Oh
So,
yeah. Did you ever play against your dad's team?
oh yeah. Oh
Oh
yeah.
no, that's so funny.
Yep. Yep. And I think one time he had the pitcher throw at me. So I
We're gonna send a strong message to this Johnson
yeah.
kid. Back
Hey,
him
give
off
it
the plate.
yeah, give him some chin music here and see how he responds to that.
Oh no, that's so funny. Oh, do you know if you ever beat him? Did your team beat his team?
I can't remember. I
Oh,
can't
that's
remember.
funny.
Uh
Have you ever in adulthood have you ever talked to your dad about it or reflected upon childhood years and sports and stuff?
kind of. Um my dad is a great dad. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
he's a really good dad. He lives on a plane of never extremely angry, but also never extremely happy, right? He lives
Mm-hmm.
in a lane, okay? But when it came to sports, within that lane, I can remember like I literally crushed another like when I was playing defense in football for a high school game. I felt like I single handedly won that game. Like I was just blowing by the offensive line. I was getting tackles. I had an interception. I had a fumble recovery and
Nice.
like just destroyed the other team. At least that's what it felt like.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah,
that
yeah.
was 25 years ago. So maybe I got
I bet
one
it's incredible.
tackle. Yeah, one tackle and thought I was the shit. Right. But
Yeah.
anyway, I came off the field. Our team won. I was jacked, went to the shower, got in the car, like walked or got home or whatever. And my dad's like, "Hey, all right, not a bad game." And I'm like, "But," he's like, "Yeah, yeah, could have had 13 tackles instead of 11. You missed this and this and this." And so I'm just like, I think what he was trying to do is to let me know that there was more opportunity for success. I don't know, but
Mm,
as a youth, especially turning into a man at some point, I took that as you get your ass out there and do that, old man, right?
right,
Like,
right.
and so I was always like I would just be like, I don't want to listen to this shit. Like I just had the game of my life,
Yeah,
and I got criticized for it, and so
yeah,
whatever. I mean, but there's certain kids that you can do that to, and it motivates them.
yeah,
And then, like me, I was that kid who probably closed up. And I was like, geez, you know what? Whatever, dude.
yeah,
What, the only reason I was good at football in high school because I was tall. And like I was a bigger kid, bigger bodied. And
yeah,
so I put, I, dude, I always look back at that and I go, I should have just imagine where you could go if you put in the effort.
yeah,
Because I look at, and this is a message that I strongly, um, coach to kids, especially my kids, and that is the effort side of things, right? If you have a goal, like I'm very goal oriented, a couple things that we've done recently, and I'm kind of all over the place now, but Ava for wrestling, I made her write down what are your goals in the next 3 months, and she's like, I want to place at state,
Hmm.
and I said, okay, now how do we get to those goals? Right, and we do so a little bit of reverse engineering on the process in order to achieve the goal, and we write it all down. I signed
Yep.
it and I go, I will do everything that I can to help you achieve this. And I signed it almost like a contract. She signed it, we got it on the refrigerator, and she achieved the goal because
Yep.
it was for like you could see the steps that were necessary to do it. And I've done it this year. My son wants to become better at baseball, and I did the same thing. I'm like, okay, write out what you think we need to do to make you a better baseball player. And
Hmm.
so we're doing some extra practices, and
Mm.
we're getting more involved in baseball and things like that. So I really feel like if there wants to be, and that's a life thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I appreciate what you're saying. You and I had been texting back and forth this week, and a thing that I said I'd be interested in talking about is how do you figure how much to push your kids
That's the
versus
question.
just letting them have fun. And I think what you just said really spoke to that. Basically, what I'm taking away from what you just said is you show your care and interest and engagement and willingness as a parent, and then you basically let it come from them. So you didn't say, hey, listen, I want you to place in state this year.
Mm-hmm.
You said, hey, what are your goals? What do you want to do this year? So you drew it out of them instead of like you seeing the potential, so you like push that. Yeah, I think that's a cool way to approach that. What do you want to do? How do you want this to go? What do you
Mm-hmm.
think it's going to take to get there? Hey, you know what? I'm in it with you. Let's
Yep.
let's draw something up and sign it together, and I'll hold up my end and you hold up your end.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
And that's the thing though, is how bad do you want to push these kids? Because there was times within the process where I was like, okay, let's go do our extra workout, especially for my daughter with wrestling, right? I
Yeah.
took her to a gym and I lied about her age so I could get her in. Don't tell anybody.
No,
And
we
we would
didn't,
do,
folks.
yep. And we did like a medicine ball workout and a sled workout, and we would do some like get cardio up. And basically, it was just to keep her moving and active, get some strength in her before state.
Yeah.
And so when she didn't want to go, I would just kind of not really push her, but I would say, look at this contract that you signed, right? Do you feel that if you decide to stay home and not do anything, it will hurt or help your chances of achieving your goal? And so I had a reference I
Yeah.
could pull back to and say, well,
Yeah.
you don't want to do this? Well, okay. Right.
Yeah.
That's now you're making the decision about your own success, not me. I'm not forcing you to do anything. I'm just
Hmm.
simply asking the question, do you want do you want to achieve your goal or not?
Yeah.
Do you
Now
feel
it
like
should.
that do you feel like that's hijacking them at all?
Hmm. I I think that plays into the question I was about to ask, which was, what would you have done if you put that to her and she decided, no, I don't want to go?
Yeah. I think what I did was I just said, hey, I like I'm committed to you. You're committed to me. I've made the commitment here and I'm willing to do it. Um, you said you were wanting to make the commitment, and there were times where we didn't go because she didn't want to. But I
Yeah.
think what that did was it really made her think about it because ultimately it became her decision and not mine.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I like that. That's what you're talking about is a thing that I think is really hard. I find it really difficult, which is to play the long game and to allow life to teach them some lessons that you say everything you say, which I think is like done very well. And then if they don't want to go, then you say, okay, this wasn't about me pushing you anyway, and then let them get the results that they get.
Yep.
And if they don't win the thing or they don't reach the goal that they want or whatever, then you can reflect and be like, why do you think that happened?
Yeah.
What do you think you would do differently next time? Or sometimes they'll see, it's kind of neat when they see some other kid doing well or pushing themselves, or like, oh my gosh, this other kid that I kind of see as a rival said that their dad takes them to this gym to get this extra practice. And then all
Hmm.
of a sudden it's a flip is switched in them. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's hard to be patient and play that long game, but it's probably important to do that so that you don't usurp their motivation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Let me ask you a question about like parents and children. So I have three kids. They all have completely different personalities.
Yes, they
Okay,
do.
like yeah, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Completely. Um,
Yeah.
and
Kids are
so
very different.
my question is because I've read some articles that basically say a person's personality is more genetics than it is environment.
Hmm.
But I don't know if that's necessarily true or not. Like, what do you see? Like, if a parent is a hard ass, do the kids become a hard ass, or do the kids go the opposite direction and they try to be more loving and caring to balance out that?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I think that can totally go either way.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of based on the kid's personality.
Hmm.
I think personalities are pretty fluid in that way. I don't know about you, but I've seen a lot of I grew up with numerous kids, and I've seen it as I've gotten older as well with other kids that they could be pretty stubborn little shitheads, you
Yeah.
know, and they can be little jerks. And man, a lot of those kids grow out of that. So
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of kids that had, you know, overbearing parents or parents that I, you know, would have called jerks. And so then their kid is a little jerk in the world. And you're like, oh God, that kid is so obnoxious, so annoying, so this or that. You know, I feel bad speaking judgmentally on this podcast, but I'm just being super open.
Yeah.
We have thoughts, right? But man, I've seen a lot of those kids grow out of that type of behavior. That kids that
Yeah.
I used to be annoyed with, and I'm even thinking of kids from my childhood that are now in their 40s.
Yeah.
They've turned into neat people, and they're cool and they're fine, and they grew out of it. It seems like they were probably able to take in data from other sources
Hmm.
beyond their jerk father, you know,
Yeah.
or whatever, or you know, mean stepdad or whatever the situation was.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I don't think that kids with jerk parents are doomed to be jerks. There's likely I think there's a good chance that they're gonna like have an internal battle of like which way do I go? What type of person am I going to be? And they might even try on some different ways of being. They might go through some jerk phases in their lives to see what that feels like, and some of them I think will cling to it and use it as armor, and the other kids I think will try the jerk thing and be like, "Oh, I don't like how that felt. That's not for me."
Yeah.
And pull out of it, and then other kids are just freaking sweethearts that even if they have jerk parents, like they've just don't have a jerk bone in their body.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think that kids are damned to be jerks if their parents are.
Yeah. One thing that has always, and this is just kind of an elaboration on this question and what you've just said, but like, what is it that causes? Let's say there's two really good parents, really great parents. They love, they care, they feel like they're doing everything right for their kid, and the kid is an asshole, right? And then you got the other one who you got two parents, or maybe they're divorced and one's an alcoholic drug addict, but then this other kid comes out and is doing everything right, like just the best, sweetest kid that there is,
Yeah,
right? How
yeah,
how do you get such contrast personalities in when you grow up in an environment that is not that?
yeah, yeah. Oh, I think that's a great question. I don't know that anybody has an awesome answer for that. And maybe I'm wrong about that. Um, I think that people just have a nature about them, and people respond to things differently.
Yeah.
And like I said, I also think that people's their personality's a bit fluid, that they figure themselves out over time. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I wish I knew the answer to that question too. You know, the biggest one being like the biggest conundrum to me is when a kid has two seemingly like really nice and awesome parents, but the kid seems to just have like a chip on their shoulder for
Hmm.
the world. That would make me guess that there's something else in the environment that we're just not aware of.
Yeah.
Maybe they're like are super competitive with an older sibling or something. There might be something behind the scenes that we're not aware of
Yeah.
in cases like that. But it could also just be that kid's suchness, and
Hmm.
again, I don't think that they're damned to being that way forever because I've seen a lot of kids like that grow out of it and end up being like really cool people. So I
Yeah.
think that there's a chance that there's some fear in those kids and some insecurity in those kids, and I those are the kids again that I would double down on, like relationship. When I notice a thing that I try really hard to pay attention to is my how I'm feeling towards a kid, and the kids that are easy to like are easy to like, but the kids that I'm noticing are annoying me and getting under my skin, then I have to check myself. Because if I don't, then I'll just label them and be like, oh my God, this kid's annoying. Like, I don't like, I wish they would go away. I don't want to be around them. Then your body language will start to show it. Your facial expressions will start to show it. Like, your thoughts and feelings towards them are going to leak out. And they're
Yeah.
going to notice those things. And then you're going to contaminate that
Yep.
relationship. And so I
Yep.
think I try hard to notice that and then put myself in check and be like, no, this is a kid. Like, get to know him, build him up. Like, it almost becomes a fun personal challenge for me to find something that I like about them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a fun thing. If you've got this cocky little kid or kid that's like, you know, being a problem, bringing the other kids down or being hypercritical, challenge yourself to see if there's something about them that you can find that you like
Yeah.
and then hone in on that because I think those kids probably need it.
Yeah. That's a fact, my friend. One of the hardest um, things that I've ever had to do was be part of kicking a kid off of a team for his
Mm,
behavior.
mm,
And the kid, deep down inside, I know was just looking for acceptance, right?
yeah.
We had an issue where the father was not in the picture because of, okay, so I'm not going to say any names, obviously, but the
Yep.
father was not in the picture. The stepfather, there was abuse. So the kid, after the stepfather left, so the kid, he's say 10, he would have been 8 years old when I first met him. And he is just trying to find something to grab onto in his whirlwind life that he had, right? Because everybody that is supposed to love him, right, as far as a father figure or something, is not there anymore or is doing bad things to him. And
Hmm.
it's messed him up in some way, shape, or form. And I don't, maybe that's not a fair thing to say, is messed him up,
It's
but
affecting him.
it's affecting him. There you go.
Yeah.
Um, and he distracted practice every minute of every practice. And now there were things that I felt as an assistant coach that could have been done to maybe go into smaller group sizes and keep the entire team busy so there was less standing around to do. And I really felt like that was an option. That didn't happen a lot. And so what we had was a lot of, you know, what's the term, idle hands or the devil's workshop or
Yeah.
whatever that
Playground. Yeah.
playground. Yeah. And so anyway, so this kid starts getting in trouble, and whenever he's standing around is when he would get in trouble. And so
Mm,
there
mm,
was a group of, like, parents, first off, that when we decided that this game, like, this team was over and we were going to go start a new team, I was a huge advocate for this kid because I saw a lot of him, like a lot of myself, going through multiple divorces as a child,
mm-hmm,
and seeing how that affected me and my behavior, and I was
mm,
um, lashing out in, like, bad ways in school and having to have meetings at school. And so, but sports was the thing that connected me and brought me, like you said, there was 1 hour of that day that I didn't have any stress because I was
yeah.
focused on this other thing. And so I knew that that's what this kid needed. And so I had to convince the entire team full of parents that this kid needs to be on this team for his, not for anybody's benefit but his own. right?
Right.
And so
Right.
they're like, well, Dan, Dan, if we trust you, so if that's your thought, then bring him in. And so then it just was a lot of the same. I was the person who was trying to, it was almost like I was coaching one person a lot of the
Yeah.
time instead of
Yeah.
the team.
Yeah.
And eventually what happened was he made a mistake and he did something that injured another kid and it had to be done. It was just like,
Mm.
um, had to be done and called his mom and was like, hey, dude, we can't have him on the team anymore. He's going to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
And that was really hard for me have to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah. Oh, I bet. What were some of the feelings that came up for you when you had to do that?
Like I just abandoned the kid, right? Because no matter what we say, how that kid felt was this. He felt they don't like me. His behavior didn't register for him,
Yeah.
right? Because if
Yeah.
it did, he would have changed it, but didn't. So he thought what he was doing was right, to maybe trying to be cool, to try to find acceptance. And what we did was just like any other person, any other father figure in his life, we've abandoned him now, abandoned him,
Yeah.
right? We've
Yeah.
said we don't want you anymore. Goodbye, right? And so I'm I'm guessing that kid went through a lot of internal like anger and sadness and fear, all these things that kids shouldn't have to feel when they're going out for a team sport
Yeah.
because of you know uh outside outside actions that were done previous. So I felt
Yeah.
really bad. I felt that was probably the worst day in all of my coaching experience that I've ever had. It sucked.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm gonna say this. This just hypothetically, what would you say? What would you say to this kid if you thought at some point he was gonna listen to this podcast, which I'm sure that he never will, but like what sentiments would you want to leave him with, or what insights would you want him to know are true that are inside you?
Well, I think a lot of it is that he's a good kid. He was a good kid who just had like whenever we could wrangle him in, he would try. Like he had some skill, dude. He would hit the ball. He would work, but it was just these little moments that all added up, right? He was a good kid. Most of the time he had positive, very positive energy,
Yeah.
but it was a switch and it's just like, dude, I don't know. It's not your fault, man. It
Yeah.
wasn't your fault. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
if I had my way, he would have stayed on the team, right? And I
Yeah.
would have been able to correct, like, I would have changed the entire practice structure to keep this kid on the team, which would
Yeah.
have benefited everybody.
Yeah.
And so, uh, like, I don't necessarily want to say I'm sorry because there is a little bit of, um, the practices got better after he left. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. You're saying the reality. There's some real, some reality of the situation that's also at play.
yeah, and we had to have a conversation with his mom, and I told his mom, like, hey, listen, he is an anchor of this team. As everybody tries to move forward and become better, he is holding the entire team back with his behavior. And and um
Hmm.
and so that was hard when I was telling this to the mother,
Yeah.
and you could see the sadness in her eyes because she just wanted her son to be in something and accepted by somebody, and this has
Yeah.
been a struggle that this child and mother have been going through, what I'm guessing, as far as
Yeah.
however long they've, you know I,
Yeah.
I don't know how long like when it started or whatever, um
Right.
but but the good news is that we saw this kid. He's on another team right now. He's
Okay.
enjoying the game of baseball. We had a very small conversation with his mom. She seems to be in a very good place. He seems to be in a very good place. And I really
Okay.
think that this kid is going to be like, um, if he keeps his head on straight, I think he's going to be able to do good things in this
Yeah.
world.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you said that he reminded you of yourself, that you
Uh-huh.
saw a lot of yourself, your past in him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you've turned out really well by the grace of God. Yeah, you know what though? It's
Pure
a great
luck.
example. To me, it's a great example of how people can go through really really hard things and end up being okay, and that you would
Yeah.
say that you acted out and you were a pain in the ass at times and all of those things, and now you're a great contributing member of society that has a great family, and you're a great dad and a great coach, and you care tremendously about your kids, and you've matured a lot.
Yeah. What I've hope happened is that because there's two paths that could have happened. Resentment. This kid could have resented every coach moving forward and
Uh-huh.
all of these things of that decision. Or maybe it was, man, if I keep acting like this, maybe it was a little bit of a wake up call. But
Yeah.
what sucks is that these wake up calls for some of these kids seem to be happening earlier and earlier and earlier to the point where I don't know if they can comprehend what is actually happening because they're just immature children
Yeah. You mean the wake up call of like getting kicked off a team?
or kicked off of a team, kicked off of a bus. Your actions, right, will lead you down several different paths if you don't change them. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
a kid getting kicked off of, let's just say out of school, right? It's
Yeah.
like, couldn't, well, if you get kicked out of school, now you got to go to a special school or a
Yeah.
different school full of kids who are just like you. And maybe what that does, it's like the Infinity Stone, the Infinity Stones. It's like the timeline stone or whatever that was in the Marvel movies, where it's like,
Hmm.
here's all these paths that could happen. You get kicked out of school, you go to the naughty kid school, and then you meet people there, and they pull you in with them to go down a bad path, or it's a wake up call, and you have to. And so it's the
Yeah.
points in life and how people react to them that what. Here's an example. In eighth grade, I got invited to go on a camp out with with my, at the time, four or five good friends that were in my grade, and then one of my friend's older brothers, and ended up showing like was going to go there too. Well, my mom found out that the older brother was going to be at the campground too, who was like, I would have been maybe a senior in high school, junior and senior in high school.
Hmm.
Well, my mom had a conversation with some other moms, and they did not let us go to this camp out. Okay.
Hmm.
So the camp out happens, and some of the other friends that we went with, uh, they ended up going. Well, at this camp out, marijuana showed up, mushrooms showed up, and and there was alcohol there. So
Yeah.
all these kids got high and drunk. And I'm not joking. The kids who went to um that camp out all turned out, one did so many drugs that he had MS and he died. The other one has been in federal prison for meth distribution, things like that. The other, like multiple drug offenses, OWIs, like
Mm.
just a path, a point where you let a kid go to an innocent camp out, someone bad shows up and brings bad things, you do those things because you might be peer pressured into it or whatever the case is, and it completely U-turned these kids' lives.
Yeah.
And so I don't like, it's moments like that that I always think about, like with these kids'
Yeah.
life. Like as a
Yeah.
coach, am I that course correction that potentially could happen with some of these kids? So I try to do my best, man. That's it.
Yeah. No, I respect that. Yep, I respect that a lot. I think it's good to have that in mind and to care in that way. I would also be careful to not put too much pressure on yourself. I think it's
Yep.
probably more likely that you can provide fertile ground for good things to happen
Yeah.
rather than you are the linchpin of this kid's life. Um, you know, or maybe not. Maybe I shouldn't take the wind out of your sails. Maybe you should just keep
I
saving
go
kids,
to
dude.
I go to, like my goal as a coach is that when these guys make the Hall of Fame in the MLB,
Yeah.
they're like, I just want to let you know that the biggest influence in my life started when I was on this team and the coach was Dan Johnson and he said these things like, I'm sorry, I'm just beating my chest because
Yeah,
my
that's right.
goal is to be the most influential person in their
Yeah,
life.
that's right. Yeah. When I was 5 years old, I just could not hit that ball off the tee, and Dan Johnson stepped into my life.
Changed
Yeah.
my life forever.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, but you brought up pushing. How how hard do you push your boy when it comes to sports?
Man. I've learned not to. He responds. I've had to learn this the hard way from like
Uh-huh.
just I've stepped in the same hole multiple times and got negative reactions from him that I thought I was like doing the right thing, and he just didn't respond well to it, and I'm a little embarrassed of how long it's taken me to learn how he what he responds to compared to how I want to do it. That I don't push, I just encourage.
Yeah.
If I encourage, what he wants from me is encouragement.
Hmm.
So he wants me to be proud of him and see all the good things that he did, and so I just build him up like crazy. He will hear criticism from coaches. So I said earlier, he's coachable. He'll hear it from me. He wants
Yeah.
encouragement. He doesn't want me to give him like you did good and you could do this a little bit better, and he doesn't want I've also pointed out like, whoa, look at that kid, look how hard they're trying. Like that hurts his feelings.
Yeah.
If I as his dad, and that's the tricky part of being a dad slash coach, but also just being a dad generally speaking is also coaching every day. Even if your kid's never in a single sport, you're still coaching your kid in life.
Yeah.
But yeah, he does not. He gets sensitive to. It's a blow to his ego if I criticize or do anything that's like criticism adjacent. And
Okay.
so I will straighten him out if he does something wrong. Like I have no problem like drawing the line and straightening him out. But if I'm in like coaching mode or like wanting him to grow as a person, it's not. I can't be as direct as telling him to that he did something wrong or how he could do something better. He just wants me to build him up. So yeah,
Yeah.
I've been frustrated with myself. I get frustrated with him, and then I have to check myself. Like, dude, it's it's my job as a parent to learn him.
Yeah.
It's not his job as a kid to learn how to be my kid.
Yeah.
So I'm trying really hard to pay attention to what he responds well to, and it's encouragement. And he will go if he makes a mistake, and I say, "Ooh, you could have done this or that." He gets very frustrated because he's already mad at himself. And so if he makes a mistake, if I'm like, "Dude, good try, good effort," da 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 da, then he will go try really hard again the next time. But yeah, man, I stepped in the hole of like pushing too many times and got a negative reaction
Yeah.
from him. Another thing though that I've figured out that I can do as far as pushing him, again, air quotes where people can't see, I will basically just say, "Hey, I'm going to go do this thing. You can come or not." And whether that's like, "Oh, I want him to get some energy out and ride bikes," or there's a hill across the street from our house that we like to run up and down. He's My kid's pretty fast, whatever. He's fast for a 7-year old. So I'm not like
Mhm.
one of those parents that thinks their kid's so cool and thinks I'm cool because my kid's fast. It's not like that. I'm just recognizing that he's pretty quick,
Yes, he is.
and he knows that he's quick from playing tag at recess. So okay, so all of that with a grain of salt, right? Again, I don't
Right.
like think my kid's God's gift to sprinting or anything like that. But we'll go across the street and like sprint up this hill. And sometimes I'm like, dude, you want to go run the hill? And he'll be like, I don't know, or no, I don't. And I'm like, well, I'm gonna go do it, and then I'll go do it, and then he'll come with me
Yeah.
because he doesn't want to miss out. And so
Right.
sometimes I'll use that for better or worse. And I keep all that positive, and I don't ever break him down or anything like that. But that's a little tactic that I've found can be useful. Like I'm just gonna go do the thing instead of trying to get you to do it. I'm just gonna do it, and you'll likely get FOMO and just want to come with me.
Yeah, dude, I think that's one thing that parents underappreciate and don't leverage enough is the fear of missing out. You can leverage that in kids where it's just like, well, and or including another kid. So, my oldest kid, he wanted to be a catcher this year, and I'm like, well, you got to practice catching because you've never done it before. And so we tried to do the catching one on one where I would pitch to him, and he didn't have any interest in that. But the second that I brought in another kid who wanted to practice pitching, it was a go automatically. Like, I'll go
Yeah,
spend
yeah,
time with this my buddy, right?
yeah,
And so
yeah,
it instantly then became a thing, and because he didn't want to miss out on hanging out with his buddy. So we
right.
leveraged FOMO and
Yep.
friendships to get these kids to put in extra work.
Yeah,
And
yeah. See, I think
maybe that,
that's savvy. I think
yeah,
that's too many of us, and I'm sure I've been guilty of this too. Like too many of us, when the first way we think of how to do something doesn't work, we get frustrated and throw our arms up. And I think that's playing checkers in life. And I think we should play chess, which is like, all right, what's my long game here? What
yeah,
are some other options? What can I do? What are some workarounds here? Yeah, no, I think that's a really good idea.
yeah.
I like that.
I like I like the long game. You've mentioned that twice now in this episode, and that's where parents fail. Is they go short game on everything because they want instant results
Hmm.
from their kid to be good and be the superstar of whatever team that it is. I've seen it. I've seen it even in. I've seen it now in club baseball. I've seen it in wrestling. I've also been a victim of it. Not a victim. I hate that word. I've fallen into that category as well. Like I want my kid to be good versus the long game, like you said, and that is, man, just get these kids to get out,
Yeah.
right? And like the first step in anything, kids, is falling in love with the sport or the activity, music, dance,
Yeah.
running, chess, you know, whatever, bicycling, I don't care. In
Yeah.
order for them to take that next step, they have to first fall in love with it. And then after that point, so like
Yeah.
all of these kids in T-ball, their first like coach pitch baseball, man, the in my opinion, the result means nothing. It
Yeah.
means nothing.
I love that.
Um, because if you put an emphasis on the result and then they feel like they are a part of the negative result, then they don't want to do that, because why would you want to do something that makes you feel bad?
So true. Yeah.
And so I'm that like, they're like the first, especially baseball, I'm using this as a reference. T-ball should be about the snacks after the game, dude.
Yeah.
Right? Coaches are
Yeah.
there to guide them, not even coach them. All right, it's just the second kid pitch. All right, now we're going to start to learn, where does the ball go when it's hit? First base. Yay! And then they
Right.
come out. It's snack time, because I'll
Yeah.
tell you, my youngest son, he forgets about the game of baseball the second the game is over, and
Yeah.
it's snacks and friendship after that.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
snacks and friendship.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't
No,
know.
I love that. I think the parents get too hung up on kids' measures of success, even in grade school. You
Yeah.
know, like I love that you said that the outcome of the game doesn't matter. You know, that was so what if your team goes undefeated in first grade?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's that do for you in life? And your
Yeah.
team was incredible when you were a second grader. Like, so what?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it came at the cost of like the coach is a hard ass and the season wasn't actually fun and you didn't make friends with kids on the team. Like, I think you're right that it needs to be so fun the whole way, and then you just introduce more and more and more coaching and challenge as they go
Yep.
without ever losing sight of keep this fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. There's I heard a story this week about a kid who was on a team that we used to be on, and the coaching staff made the decision in the championship game, like, this kid is part of the reason that the team got to the championship game, and they sat a particular kid out for the entire game at 10 years old, right?
Yeah.
What in the hell,
Yeah.
dude? You know
Yeah.
how
Take your values
how
backwards.
Yeah, you know how bad that kid felt after the game?
Yeah.
It's like, I sat
Oh
on the
yeah.
bench in the championship game at 10 years old.
Yeah.
Like, what are
Oh,
you doing?
insane. Yeah. I think even in like when my kid was 5 and they had to like try out for the team, there were kids that got cut. Like
Yep,
how can a 5-year-old get cut? I think that's crazy.
exactly.
I also think it's really sad. Another pet peeve that I have is um high school sports, let's say, just keep using baseball.
Yep.
It happens in every sport though. Like there's some kid that's a senior that's been playing since they were a kindergartner, and this is their last season. It's their last hurrah, and maybe they're not the best, but they've been like trying hard the whole team, and the coach cares so much about winning that they bring up some freshman phenom to play on the varsity team, and this 12th grader's just sitting there on the bench while this freshman's out there playing. And it's like, dude, I just think you're losing sight of what the whole point of all of this is. First of all, let that freshman be a phenom on the freshman team.
Hmm.
Why rob the senior of the experience of getting to play?
Yeah.
Almost none of them are going to go play at the next level. If they're going to play at the next level, it's probably not because of their season games. Like now they're going to traveling to showcases, and you're sending in your highlight reel to things. Like it just makes me so sad to see a coach bench a senior that's been playing baseball since they were a kid to bring
Yeah.
up some freshman or sophomore that's really good. You're kind of screwing the freshman sophomore over because these are the only years they get to play with their friends, and you
Yep.
just took them off of their team that the rest of their
Hmm.
friends are playing on. You're putting more pressure on them. You're robbing the senior of their chance to play. Sometimes you're putting the freshman or sophomore in a position that they are good, but they're not necessarily good compared to good seniors. So now they're
Yeah.
like not feeling that great, and it's even more sickening when they bring up a freshman or sophomore and just sit them.
Yeah.
Like you're on the varsity team, but you're not going to play. It's like wow, you just stole a year or two of their high school
Yeah.
career, and they're probably not going to play pro anyway.
Yeah. Let
Man,
me
just
let me
priority.
let me play devil's advocate here a second.
Yeah,
In life, there are times when no matter how much time, energy, effort, money you spend and hard work, like you bust your ass and you still fail, or you don't get the job, or you don't get the girl, or you don't get
yeah.
what you worked so hard for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a like I look at that and I go, there's a life lesson there,
Yeah.
right? That there's always going to be somebody better than you,
Yeah.
right? And if
Yeah.
there's nobody better than you, then you're very rare, and you got your life set out for you, right?
Yeah.
So I look at something like that, and I'm just like yes, because at a certain point, sports does become about competition, and
Absolutely.
in competition there is a winner and there is a loser,
Right.
and so how people become champions is because they practice so hard they become better than the people above them, and they're going to get an opportunity to shine, or that's going to say that to that senior, I need to get my ass in gear, dog, because I got a freshman coming up who is going to take my spot,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so
Good
competition,
argument.
yeah, so it's difficult for me. I think there's an age, there's got to be an age, like 7-year-olds. Yeah, dude, everybody plays, everybody has fun, everybody gets snacks, right?
Right.
High school, now we're talking about a completely different animal, because you have some kids who don't want to go play the next level, and then you've got a group of kids that do want to go play the next level,
Mm-hmm.
and now you have an environment where if if you're surrounded by people who don't want to play the next level and you do, well, guess what? They're not going to be there to support you in making you better. Wrestling's a perfect example. You got to have a partner that is going to make you better.
Yeah.
Right? You could just have
Yeah.
a lazy partner who you just take down all the time, but you
Yeah.
got to surround yourself with people who want to see you succeed and are willing to work as hard as you are in order to get that. Now, I'm thankfully not there yet,
Yeah.
because man, when it gets to that point, it starts to get crazy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yep. No, I appreciate that rebuttal. I appreciate that perspective.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think there's multiple ways to look at it.
Yeah. The bad thing
Yep.
about sports, though, is now parents and organizations are so focused on winning that they're skipping all of these little things within a kid's sporting career in order to get the victory, right?
Mm,
We're like most of the time, especially this time of year, you're playing more games than you're practicing. That's a, in my opinion, that's a big no-no. But the way that the organizations are set up are like that. And
Yeah.
so it just continues to put more pressure on parents. And in return, what do parents do? They pass that pressure back down to the kids.
Yeah. Right.
So
Right.
how, like, if there's a parent out there who is not knowing what to do or how to coach their kid or put good pressure or bad pressure, they really don't know what they're doing.
Mm.
What do you like any I don't know if the word psychological is the right word, but any tips or conversations that they should be having externally or internally with themselves
Yeah.
or
Yo,
people around
absolutely.
them?
Absolutely. The easiest most low hanging fruit is identify what you know you don't want. What don't you want? I don't want my kid to feel like crap. I don't want
Mm-hmm.
my kid to be self-conscious all the time. I don't want my kid to think poorly of themselves. I don't want to tear my kid down. So identify the things you don't want and just make sure you don't do those things.
Right.
And then beyond that, then you have to identify, like, spend some time thinking, which I think a lot of us don't do. Spend some time thinking and be purposeful about, all right, well, what are the values you do want to instill? And
I
then you
like
just
that.
focus on those values and then you let go of the consequences. So I, with my kiddo, I've already been trying to do this where my mind just goes to, like, oh, it'll be so fun to watch him play in junior high and high school, and I bet he'll be really good and all of this. And I've actually had to check myself on that and be like,
Mm.
he might not ever do any of that.
No.
He might not ever play. He might decide not to play sports anymore.
Yeah.
And so I need to stop being outcome oriented or focused and just focus on the process of just loving
Mm-hmm.
my kid, being there for him, focus on being a good teammate and being modest and not letting him be a little jerk on the field when he does something good. And I want him building his teammates up and I want him to listen to the coaches. And so I figured out what I don't want, how I don't want to be, and then I focus on my values. And dude, I'm just gonna live by my values with him, and I'm gonna live and die by it. And whatever
Yeah.
the results are, the results are. And that's very
Yeah.
different from needing outcomes to be a certain way.
Yeah, exactly. And now you start to listen to the people who actually did make it, right? Some of the best baseball players in the world. They're like, yeah, well, I never even played baseball until I was 13 or
Right.
something like that. And especially with kids, you have puberty hitting, and that's the ultimate. That's one of the ultimate definers. Like some kids are going to grow a foot. Some kids are going to stay that size and gain weight, and maybe they're stocky, maybe they're tall and skinny, and it just goes against. Your kid could be an awesome soccer player, but he's going to be 6'8", and then his priorities might change because he can windmill dunk it. You know what I mean? So like,
Right. Right.
so
Yep. Yep.
all that time and energy but there's benefits of sports too. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yep. I think at its best we can focus on family values and then see how those translate to sports rather than needing sports to be what makes us feel good.
exactly. It's not, it's like a label for a lot of people. I
Yeah.
am the parent of an awesome baseball player. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think what happens is a lot of parents, I don't know. It's like, I call it the Napoleon Dynamite effect, where it's
Uh,
like, yeah, when I was in high school, I could throw a football over those mountains.
yeah, that's right.
And now I can't do that anymore. And or maybe I have some regret in my life because I know when I was a kid, I didn't try hard. So now I'm going to
Yeah.
push all that on my kid so that he's successful to make up for
Yeah.
my failure.
Absolutely, and we'll need to wrap up in a minute 'cause I have a client. But yeah, I think that you're touching on something important, which is, like, I think our hearts can be in the right place.
Right.
Like, I pushed my kid because no one pushed me, and I
Mm-hmm.
realized, like, oh my God, other kids' parents were pushing them, and they got better because of it.
Yeah.
And I think I would have been a lot better if I would have been pushed, if I would have even known that kids were doing, I didn't know kids were doing extra work outside of practice.
Yeah.
I came to practice and I worked my ass off.
Yeah.
And I was decent and I did fine at everything. I
Mm-hmm.
did not even know that other kids were putting in a bunch of work outside of it. And
Yeah.
so I've tried to, like, expose my kid to that, and I've just had to be careful with how needy I am to do it. But Yeah, so now I'm trying to do it in more like fun ways rather than,
Yep.
hey, there's some other kid out there working hard. Gotta
Yep.
outwork him.
Well, I'll tell you this. Kyle and I had a brainstorming session via text message yesterday. And so we have a lot of, there's going to be times where we're probably going to elaborate on the conversation that we had today. There's a whole bunch of bullet point topics that we're going to touch on moving forward. So we're set for a while, I think, as far as ideas and how we're
Yeah.
going to approach this podcast. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. And if you haven't already, if this is the first time, you can find our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and anywhere else that podcasts are downloaded. Um, Outside of that, I think we're going to try to launch I don't have a specific day of the week quite yet, but I think the goal is going to be Mondays.
Hmm.
Um, I know that whenever I need therapy, it's usually after a weekend. If I ever need to,
Right.
like need to talk, God, this weekend, so,
Right.
um, go to iTunes, leave a 5-star review, tell everybody how much you enjoy this podcast, share it with your friends, and anything else before we shut it down, Kyle?
I appreciate you, man. Thanks for sharing your thoughts and being vulnerable and being transparent. I really like learning from you, and I really respect you.
All right, I appreciate it, man. Until
You
next
bet.
time.
Thanks.